this is kind of different. Hey, we're in the office here. We just finished wrapping up the ledge, and I missed you for meetings today. And thanks for coming in the last minute for this little what matters to you thing. And I'll kind of give an update on it. So when I was first running out there trying to get elected and figuring out this whole damn political thing, I treated it like a pipeline. So the way you used to do pipelines, you go into an area and you kind of go to the little local stores or the little restaurants and you sit around and you listen and you find out what matters to people. So when you're going through that area, you kind of know how to address issues. And what folks tend to forget is you're the stranger in the area. Everybody else knows everyone else. They know you're the stranger. So if you go up and start yakking at them right away, like they just turn off. You go there a couple times and all of a sudden they come over to you and you start to talk. So that's what I did when I first was crazy enough to get into politics. And it was literally that what matters to you. So sit down and listen, then find out 4 or 5 things that matters to folks. And then from there, that's where you see if the policy works. And if we're doing something right, great. Then you can articulate it back to them. And then if it isn't, then you change your policy and understand. And then the other side is, so it's listening is the first one. And the second one is letting people know what matters to them. So things they've told us about and we talked about to get it back out to them. So you and I met a while ago now. You've been a mayor down in that Oyen country for a number of years. And the more I find out about you, you're one of those pillars of our communities that have been holding things together and gluing it together for years.
Well, I don't know whether I'm a pillar or not, but I tend to do a lot of things and try and keep the community rolling along because all these small towns now are starting to die a little bit and they just need...
Well, how did you get into that, Doug? Like, give us a little bit of your background, your story. So this is Doug Jones, the actual. Do I say your worship, or how does that work?
No. I'm just an average guy, and that's all I am. I don't know. I guess I had an uncle that was in politics in Calgary there a long time ago when Diefenbaker was around, and he was over. Diefenbaker had actually come to his house there in '57, I guess it was, and sort of was intrigued by him, and so sort of followed politics ever since, and. My dad was involved in it in Saskatchewan as a social credit person.
Oh, no kidding.
And, of course, that didn't last as long as he would have liked. But anyway, so I've always been interested in it. I guess local politics is, you're trying to do something for your community. And I guess it really sort of my mentor was, or whatever you want to say, it was Shirley MacLeod. I was president of her riding for 17 years.
No kidding.
So, a very wise lady and taught me a lot about stuff. So,
well, somebody had said, and I've met her, actually I think I've met her twice, and just a dynamo lady. Somebody had said she was the minister of everything.
She was a minister of a number of portfolios, yes.
Yeah, anytime there was a problem, she went into it and she sorted it out.
That's right. Anytime there was a problem, she ended up being that minister.
Oh, that's neat.
So.
And then when you and I met, I think the first time was down in Drumheller. So Nate Horner's your guy, Minister Horner, which salt of the earth guy, like just salt of the earth guy. And they kind of say the saying here in the ledge, there's a Horner in every corner. So I think every administration has a Horner or something like that.
No, that's right. There was, I used to know Hugh and all the old, back there a long time ago when Lougheed was in there and that. And I remember Lougheed when he would practice his speeches at my Aunt Irva, which is Eldon Williams' wife. But anyway, she was the leader, or not the leader. She was the secretary of Lougheed's campaign.
Okay. Well, and Doc Horner is up from my area where I'm at.
Yeah, so would be. Yes. Yeah.
And then when I met you guys, it was down in Drum, and we were talking about rail. So I was talking about this corridor model, and you guys were just lighting it up when it came to short line rail. Yeah. So maybe tell me a little bit about that. How'd that come to be?
Well, I guess at that time I was on the PEP board, and at that time we were looking at moving. Mesnat wanted to move the railway from downtown Mesnat out because their land and all that stuff downtown, so that's where the rail yards was valuable land. They need, they wanted to expand their town. So, unfortunately, in the end, it didn't come through. It looked like it was gonna go out by Redcliffe.
Okay.
But it just didn't work out. So the rail's still downtown. And at that time, I was on executive PEP. We had a $100,000 grant to move the rail, and we had $50,000 left over, and we were going to have to turn it back because And I'm not a guy, when the government gives you some money, I don't usually want to see it turned back. So anyway, we had, went home that night not feeling so good about it, and drove across the railway tracks, and I thought, we get railway tracks here, maybe we could put it here. And phoned down and talked to our leader there at that time, our executive director, and yes, we looked into it, and we could use the money as long as we stayed within the PEP region. So,
And what's the PEP region? What is that? PEP?
Palliser Economic Partners.
Oh, okay.
It stems from Concert to the U.S. border, east from the Alberta border over to Highway 36.
And that's a good tranche of land. That's a big area.
Yeah, it's 25% of the province, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's not bad. That's a good tapestry to start to work with.
Yeah, no, it worked out well. We started there, and in 2015 we started on it. In 2017 we had the first train roll in October 31st.
Nice.
Yeah. And so since then we've been expanding it and continue to expand it, and appreciate your help and everything with some leads that you give us. And we had a big meeting here 2 weeks ago, I guess now, with Dr. Ball and some of those, and it was a good meeting. So we're moving ahead again. So yeah.
Well, and part of it too for the folks might be tuning into this. One of the things that I found out, so these main economic corridors, again, my background was pipeline, worked on rail. Yeah. We did fiber optics across the country, learned a bit about CN and CP rail, predominantly CP, like that's where we were plowing in the fiber. Found out there were some goofy things that just didn't make sense. So when we're on the CP rail line, there was a ton of right-of-way out there that have been torn up.
Yeah.
And I'm asking the mainline guys there, like, why don't you have your second track? And they said, well, the federal government changed the rules. They were taxing us on our secondary track just as high as if it was primary. Mm-hmm. So we just plowed it up. Yeah. So all of a sudden you've got silly or stupid policy or short-sighted policy, whatever it is, that hamper the logistics system in making that cash. The other one, too, is the consolidation of those lines. So CN and CP told me that there's basically a shotgun clause between them. Back in the day, if something happened on CN, then CP or CN could run their trains on CN and CP. So they got this mutual benefit.
Yeah.
The other one that they had to try to make sure that it was fair for the customers was if one of the companies built new infrastructure, then it's at a given rate. If party B wanted to run on it, then they basically could. So if they were holding their customers ransom for tonnage on that new build, the other guy could come in at an agreed rate.
Yeah.
So what happened when they started consolidating all those granaries and they started pulling out the shorter sections, these guys are creating deserts out there where there's no service, and nobody wants to be the first one to build new track because the other guy can come in and cut their throats basically on the running rates.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what happened.
And then the other thing I found out through your contacts through the Western Rail, that Saskatchewan actually got it a hell of a lot better than we did. And Saskatchewan made sure that they didn't plow up the tracks and they kept the rails in there when they walked away from these short line sections. Yeah. Alberta didn't. So we've got a bunch of snowmobile clubs running around on their high-grade rail tracks. Yeah. And, good luck trying to get on the rail up there. Yeah. So it really got me interested when I met you guys down in Drum. You'd already figured that stuff out. You already kind of got the model, and then that could potentially be the feeder system. And then moreover, it was the farm team. You're literally building an industry where folks can be home every night, and they can be railroaders and farmers and ag production guys and agri-food guys and putting up even windmills.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's been people didn't think that could re-happen again, but now you look at it's happening down in the States, and cost of transportation now and fuel not going down with trucks down the road and beating up the highways, it's way further ahead to be on the rail.
Yeah,
I think we all realize that. So
well, and I think it's only number two. Like there's a couple things that are really good for moving product. Pipe for anything liquid or gas. I mean, you can't beat that. You've got ships, and then you've got rails.
Yeah.
And, our country literally was built around those railroad tracks, those original corridors.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So tell us a little bit, how in the heck did you got the sidings going and then you got this rail yard going? And it must have been a bit of an awkward conversation to tell a bunch of guys, no, we can do this. We can actually become railroaders. How did that go?
Well, there was not many people who had a vision, or I shouldn't say a vision. They would like to see it, but they didn't think it could happen. And, it took us 2 years, or took me a couple of years to find a person who could afford to pay for the extra putting into the rail and stuff, and we ended up with a frac sand company that was looking for a place. They were actually in Mesnat, and most of their frac sand was going up in the Oyen area. And they were in Kindersley, and they were looking at, they had a lease in Kindersley on some track, and the lease was going, they were losing the lease by October the 31st. And it happened to me, I just happened to phone the right person at the right time, and the girl that answered her phone was a girl I babysat in this company, and I'll give you this phone number, but you didn't get it from me. And the guy was there within an hour because he's in Kindersley trying to renew his lease, and he couldn't get it. So he came out and looked, and a week later, he says, we will come to Oyen. We need some guarantees because it has to be guaranteed that we can unload the 31st of October. And so he made a deal. He put $300,000 down, and we had the tracks going in 2 months for him, and he unloaded. Yeah,
right on.
And it's worked out well for us, for everybody since.
So getting an anchor tenant or an anchor customer is key to getting this thing kick-started. And then you went from the frac sand, and then how else did you start getting into other?
Well, when we started advertising, then Canadian Armed, I guess it'd be the British Armed Forces.
Okay.
We're starting to pull some of their stuff out of Medicine, and they wanted a way to ship it on rail, and they would either have, if they went up to Wainwright, that was a further distance than coming to Oyen, so they would bring their equipment to Oyen, and we loaded it on the rail in Oyen because it had to go to Halifax to get on the boats.
Okay.
So that started that thing, and then after that, some local farmers were getting, actually more farmers out of Saskatchewan were getting fertilizer shipped in, where they unloaded it there and then hauled it back into Saskatchewan because it was coming out of Florida.
Okay.
So then local farmers started doing that too. And then, it's just, okay, what are we going to do? And then we had to expand it. And then they wanted a big yard. The windmills wanted to have a big yard to unload in. So we spent, a large amount of money, I guess, on building a yard for them. And now it's used all the time.
Well, and you kind of became the logistic guys. Like any time that we tried to move stuff for big mods and you're coming across Nebraska or bringing stuff in from Korea, like it's a goat rope. Like it might be cheaper to build it over there, but figuring out the, offshore, building stuff offshore when you look at big production. But it's logistics that kills you of moving that stuff once you got it here.
Definitely.
And those blades, they're not small. Like I was at Enbridge there, we put up, and there was 350 windmills down by Lethbridge.
Yeah.
That's when we were in a JV partnership down there. And it just blew me away as being a farm kid looking at the size of those things for the first time.
Well, the ones we just unloaded here the other day, or the train actually just come in here yesterday, and they're 246 meters now.
246 meters.
246
Is that the prop,
meters.
the prop on those things? Or the blade?
That's one blade, one piece of the blade.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how many cars do you rack up to do that? How does that work?
It takes, to move two blades, because they overlap them, and it takes 7 cars.
Yeah.
Like, 7 80-foot cars, 450 feet, and they overlap them to bring them in.
Wow.
And so we bring in a 7,000-foot train. So we'll have 6 of them come in this year with just blades on, and then all the other. To build a windmill, it takes 13 carloads of stuff, and
okay.
So we're busy. We got an 18 acre yard. It's got done properly. We put down a foot of clay and everything, and redid the yard and packed her down. So
yeah, you need her stable for sure.
Yeah, no, and it's been good. So now we're looking at expanding the yard some more. We just put so since we've been there, we've added 12,000 feet of track, and we just put another 4,000 feet in here this spring.
Nice.
Probably do another 3,600 this summer, or like this fall. We'll build the grade in the. Usually easier to build the grades in the fall, and it settles enough, and then in the spring come put the track on.
Okay. Yeah. And so how is this working for the local community then? They didn't have a railroad. Now they got this big siding and things are going out. And now you're looking at going a little bit further outside the territory there too.
Well, I think now they believe that, and they actually, like we have a inland terminal, what we're looking at now, or another inland terminal coming in. The one that we got now handles 50 cars. What we're looking at is a 138-car terminal coming in. So the train they never unhook it. When they come in, they load it on the go, and when they pull out, they never unhook it, never shut it off in the way they, And it'll head either to Prince Rupert or you'll go down east one way or another.
Okay.
The windmill blades, they bring them out of Houston. That's where they come. So it takes them 14 days to make a trip up and 14 days back. So they just rotate them. in 14 days, the same cars,
just heading
or
back.
28 days, the same cars will be back with another load on.
And where's the blades? Is that Siemens? Is it in Germany where they're
I
making
don't know.
them?
These are coming out of Vestas. Yeah, they're coming out of Germany.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there we go. Little Oyen, Alberta, in that beautiful part of the country down south there from us.
Yeah.
Sitting there becomes the windmill factory.
Yeah, well.
You're connecting from Germany to through Houston and points beyond.
I mean, whatever you want to say about windmills, they've been a good business for us.
Yep.
I mean, we've set up about 300 windmills now, and I think there's a couple more years of that yet to come in our area. I mean,
well, in part of it too, and you kind of led with that, so I'm going to stick my chin out there a bit too. For those watching, we're not against windmills. What we are against is the policy that precludes good old physics and reality and engineering. So back in the day, again, when we were looking at throwing these up for Enbridge, we had solar panels and windmills and all that stuff. And this is going back 2009, 2010. So when I'm talking about an integrated electric system, it's not precluding one source or the other. The issue was the damn policy got screwed up. So all of a sudden, the way you were buying the power was coming off the windmills, and your baseload guys weren't there.
Yeah.
So now you've got peakers on, not the old coal-fired plants that we used to do, the big thermals.
Yeah.
The thermals used to be steady state. You'd take that power first and bring these other ones in. And then the transmission line. So when everyone's looking at their power bill, and why we paused was to say, okay, let's get this stuff sorted, because nobody contemplated how this grid was going to work.
Yeah.
And let's get that integrated, and that's what we've done. So we've got Bill 19 out there that'll unravel a bunch of this stuff.
Yeah.
And if we can put windmills, put them up, but put them in good places and locations. Don't be all Wild West and throw them in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
and somebody else has to figure out how to tie it in and make it work.
Yeah.
So it has to be better planned, and I think we struck a good balance with that. So the wind energy, a lot of folks don't realize 80% of the investment in renewables was in Alberta and still will be in Alberta.
Will be, and will continue to be.
Yep.
What people don't realize is the wind comes in cycles, and what I mean by that is it'll be over by Pincher Creek in there, and then what they do is they set the next set of windmills up 8 hours away.
Yeah.
So then it's the same wind that went in through Pincher Creek is now turning the blades in Oyen.
Yep.
And it'll be the same ones that will be turning blades over in Saskatchewan. And
Yep.
that's how they're setting it up now. So
Oh, that's cool.
yeah.
And there is wind farming. I mean,
Yep.
they got to figure it out. So.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And then what's next? I'm going to lead you into that one because we had a little bit of a study we figured out to take a look at some of these.
Well, yeah, I think now that we recognize that the rail is there to stay. We're looking at moving it further west. I know right now we got about a year and a half to finish what we want to do in the Oyen area for it'll be a base like a center like Kindersley or something like that. Where we'll have trackies there and we'll put a set of passing tracks in and things like that where two trains can go by each other. We got a 2C clean plants coming up. We got a packaging plant that's coming. I think Mr. Ball is going to come with a packaging plant, and we got a fuel and another fertilizer people that are going to come. So we want to finish that up here first. And right now, then I think we're looking into where we can go further west, and really CN as Prince Rupert is the place to go.
Yeah.
Where we got to go, and I think we all recognize that. It's just to choose the right route, and I think we're down very close to that. And I think we got to do a little more study engineering on that. Maybe $1 million or $1.5 million to finish that off, and then I think we'll have it. We'll take it back from Oyen over by Drum up through Stettler and then up into Camrose and meet there, because then there's all main line there again.
Yep.
And so whether it's going to be a independent thing or like its own. Our own Oyen Regional Rail will do it, or we'll partner with CN. I don't know which way it is. But,
Yep. And for anybody wondering out there going, okay, how does this work then? Well, basically everything old is new again. There was a bunch of existing beds like we talked about, throwing those tracks down there, looking at your volumes. And then Prince Rupert, I'm pretty bullish on it because it's been said, CN even calls it Alberta's port. We've got only 30% built out. You got deep sea port access. Logistically, it makes a ton of sense. It alleviates a lot of congestion off that west coast. From Vancouver and Long Beach and right up through Portland as well. So we start moving that stuff that way. It makes a ton of sense on my side.
Well, yeah, all those things you said are correct. I mean, that we need to have a place where Canada can export their stuff out of the Canadian port,
Yep.
that isn't congested, because right now we all know it takes 2 weeks to run a car, get it through Vancouver and that now, whereas Prince Rupert, they can go there, and it's and like the railway CP's got the beauty, but CN's got the grade. I mean, it takes less horsepower to take a car to Prince Rupert than it does to Vancouver.
Yeah, I didn't even consider that, going through that spiral mountain. That's a big, that's quite the engineering enterprise too. Yeah. But it's nice to see those two big companies kind of integrating. And from my side too, most of them, well, actually, pretty much all of them, the mindset has changed a little bit in the last couple of years too, which was neat. But they really want to work with the mom and pop or the junior railroad companies or the secondary guys. Yeah. And that works with their business model. Like CanDo made a lot of sense as well, integrating into that system of doing the loop tracks and doing the cars and,
that's right.
and collecting for the customers. Yeah. And for those that aren't catching this, I'll just walk through it really quickly. So the mainline guys typically like to move big 100-unit trains. They want to go from point A to point B. They don't want to be messing around hooking up and unloading cars and doing that. Customers won't have 100 cars on their lot at any one given time, but they need to get product moving. They might do 5 or 10 or 2 or 3 cars and batch them. And then those big guys coming in, it's just a lot of work to shuttle and load those cars. So the business model is you take a short line rail or a junior rail company. They're the ones that can do all that really detailed customer service, pull it in, build the trains. The big guys come in with power, hook on, and then they're gone. And then they're whipping it back and forth.
Yeah, they want the hook and all. They want the the little guys are like the Oyen Rail people. You assemble the train, 50 cars or 100 cars, and we'll come in and hook on and haul it. Or maybe in our case, maybe we end up taking it up to Camrose. Where it's 50 cars there, and they hook another 50 from somebody else on, or whatever.
Well, and the other one too that blew my mind was the cars, the lead time to get cars, because there's a deficit of those in the North American market. Everyone's trying to get cars. The other one too is like old Janice Joplin said, pave paradise and put up a parking lot. Well, there's no parking lots for these damn cars. You got to find a spot to put them. So some of the juniors then, even if they're not fully operational, they can make cash by being a parking lot, basically.
No, that's right. And there is money in that. There's not money in it if you got to build a brand new line to do it, but you can take the old lines, refurbish them, and use them. And when you're putting the new steel in, put the heavier steel in so they can carry the load and run it on your main line and keep the lighter rail in the yard. And that's what we're doing now. Okay, that's what we want to do is get our yard finished so we have got storage track.
So what was the? Oh, I hit the damn mic here. What was the business model? I'm going to talk with my hands. Either I'm going to get a pen out and start drawing. What was the business model that you put together? Like CP and CN are big publicly traded companies. Obviously, you're not that. So was it a cooperative model? Was it a not-for-profit? Was it some other hybrid that you got this going?
Well, it was a hybrid, and I think we're changing that model. We started a not-for-profit company, the town of Oyen and the special areas, which is the county. And we injected money into that, the town did, and the special areas, and when we got our money back out of that, not all of it's quite back to the special areas yet, but it will be here this year. And now it's operating as a not-for-profit company. Okay. So all the money that we put in there has to be used cumulatively in the town or in the special areas. Okay, so that was it wasn't that we were going to make it and pay dividends to a bunch of people. It was be paying dividends to the town, whether we want to build some housing or other things afterwards. Okay, and then we sold part of it off to a group, which they will end up, like I said, it'll be paid out here in a year. And they're going forward with it, and we're working with them to do it. We're still all partners together, but we're going forward, to look at extending the railway further west and up into Camrose. We have a chance to go to Calgary too, but the cost is $100 million more to go to Calgary than it is to go to Camrose, and I think that's where we're looking at first.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of prejudiced. Well, looking at some of the other models and what's downstream too is tying at that Rupert, and that makes a ton of sense. And that Grand Prairie country, we're looking at something similar up there too.
Yeah, no, and you think about, the countries that we're going to be dealing with now, we're dealing with Japan and China and all those eastern countries. Yep. And it's 3-4 days closer, depending on which country you are, by boat. to come to Prince Rupert. But
Yeah.
people don't understand that, but it's closer, and it's dollars.
Well, and I'm heading up to an Arctic conference here. It looks like in October up to Reykjavik too. So
Yeah.
that'll be interesting looking at the whole polar routes and,
Yeah.
and seeing
Yeah.
what's going on. And it's a global scale. It's not just us.
Yeah.
But I'm going there. The Premier asked me to go on her behalf to go sit out on that. And again, every time I start looking at those great circle routes, it makes a ton of sense. And India, Doug, is really interested in everything that we have. So we'll be heading over there in October, latter part of September, October as well, early October.
Yeah.
And we've had, different investing groups and talking about that as well. They're looking for secure partners. They're looking for food security. They're looking for energy security. And again, that port puts us really competitively for them, really close.
No. And we've actually had 2 delegations from China over. We got a group from the Japan's been here, and we've had an East Indian group that are here just lately, and we have another one coming back over. And so,
Nice.
And some of them even want to be involved. And I thanks to you for steering that one group to come and see us.
Shoot,
that was
this
good.
is the fun part.
Yeah,
Trying to connect folks across the pond. Like I tell people, I want one dusty boot in Alberta, cowboy boot in Alberta, then the other one's touching salt water. It doesn't have to be on our shores either. So I'm glad when that starts to work.
Yeah.
That reminded me, you said you had folks from Asia over here. You told me a story when you brought some of those folks over here, and they couldn't believe the open air and space that we had, and the cattle. And you want to just regale that one again? Because I thought that was pretty cool.
We picked them up in Calgary off the airplane, or they stayed overnight in the airplane, and then they came out. We drove them out. I rented a Suburban there in order to take them all with us, and we come down. We went down through Drumheller and then through the the river valley there and got up on top, and they just couldn't believe the space. They had to stop and take. It took us 6 hours to get there because they wanted to take pictures and pictures and pictures. And then the one guy says, "I'd like one of these cows." He says, "I know the guy that owns those cows." Yeah. And so I took him over to Slorsted's place there, and we went there, and they sat down, and they couldn't believe it. You just sit down at the kitchen table and talk. They had an interpreter with them, but they couldn't believe the amount of cows, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And they've been back. They've been back since.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal what the people that don't have what we have, when they see it, they really want to be here.
Yeah.
So
Well, and it's interesting too. We had some folks over from Germany were here, and then even it was the High Commissioner of England, which was really neat. And from India as well, and there was a pervasive theme, and I'll distill it down as basically you can't fake authenticity. As an example, with India, they punted out fancy socks, but they have their prairie boys. So Saskatchewan and Alberta are over there, and they like to deal with us.
Yeah.
The Germans said the same thing. They've never been to a place where they just felt more comfortable walking off a plane, and average people are doing that.
No.
And the High Commissioner of the UK was neat because she said basically she's been in all the provinces in Canada, but Alberta is the place where she feels genuinely that things happen.
Yeah.
People make things happen. Anything's possible here.
And they feel more welcome in Alberta.
Yep.
Seriously, they do. It's just the nature of us, our people here that we have here. We don't basically have any axes to grind with any countries really. We just no, it's. And like the meeting we had the other day, we had some people on from the U.S. and some people, from India there, and we sat and talked, and everybody, it was just talking like you and I are talking, and that's what it's about. And I think we have the best province in the world. So
I'm pretty bullish in Alberta, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And it's really cool, Doug, to have those legacy projects where you're working on it, and it's really neat to be part of that.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a little bit of a thumbprint on that, but somebody else is going to pick up that torch too.
Yeah.
And I honestly believe if we get this stuff fixed, we get these corridors, we get them designated, like we're talking 70 years of sustainable growth with really good trading partners. Like we're talking trillions of dollars that would be built up over the years.
Definitely, yeah. And I think it makes sense to line all these things, throughout the province and where they interconnect and everything else. And it's just that much better for everybody in the province. Appreciate you taking the time to to do that and take that on as a project, because it's not easy when you first start, and I know that, and you know that too. But it's going to come in the end, because people now are talking about it.
Well, and it's funny where folks in my area, they ask, well, what have you been up to? And well, it's not our area, but it is.
Yeah.
But it is. It's going to run through your backyard.
That's
and
right.
Once you start looking at that whole idea, it's like the Disneyland ride. And I honestly believe, I've said this a couple of times, I think Tony Soprano and Mickey Mouse, they're the same person.
Yeah.
They're both gangsters. They take your money, but somehow you feel happy about them at the end of it. And it's that whole Disneyland trip where you get on the ride, you're all excited, you go to the gift shop, and you push them down the road to go to the next ride. Well, that next ride is the next town over. And once you start connecting these things and we look at what we can do, oh, heck, it just lights up.
Well, you look at, we got a couple 100,000 people a year come into our province.
Yep.
And I believe that we cannot afford to keep building the cities bigger and bigger. We got infrastructure in smaller towns, and that where we need to you can use that up and build some more in there, and all you're hooking all the towns together, and it's back to where the economy and all the small towns are thriving again, and that's where we need to go.
It was really cool. There was a guy, I can't mention his name, but he worked with us with the intergovernmental relations, and he's an economist too. That's his background.
Okay,
And was meeting with another honorary consulate of Botswana. So Botswana wants to kind of look at how we can work with things over there too, and kind of give us the lay in the land in Africa. And the first guy that was with us for a number of years, he used Japan as an example. So we were talking about rail, and we were talking about rail transit and those things. And this fellow from our side, Dave, I'm not going to say your last name, but David said, if you look at what happened after World War II in Japan, and there was a push to start building that rail. The rail connected their country. That's what fed everything else. And until they had their country connected, they were kind of like us. I hate to say it, kind of isolated. You had some roads, you got some areas and territories. Once they connected those places by rail, because they were good at it, they started developing those higher speed trains. All of a sudden, they had massive leaps ahead. It's because they connected regions and people together, and everything flowed from there.
Yeah. No, and talking about Japan there, Barb Kulik, my executive director, her and I went over there to look at the different things that they have there, and they got a high speed rail. I mean, that was unbelievable. You could fly. You could go on the rail from between the two cities in the same amount of time as you could fly.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's unbelievable. That's what we can do.
And over in Europe, it was the same thing. You jump on a Bombardier train, which always blows my mind. You got Canadian products sitting over in Germany and whipping along at 200, 300 kilometers an hour, and that's just mainstay.
Yeah.
Folks say that it's some detractors will say, well, they don't have the population. Well, I think it's the other way around. We've got the population now, and you'll have more once you put these items in place.
Once you put them in,
And then for the tourism side, jumping off a plane, if you're booking a flight from Frankfurt or something, and in your ticket, it already includes the train ride from Calgary to Banff.
Calgary or Edmonton to Banff.
Or Edmonton or Jasper, whatever. Once you start hooking these things together, that works. You got to look at secondary tracks, so you're not running just on the freight lines, because we already know what happened there. So I think rail is going to actually give us that next evolution. And to your point, take a lot of that strain off of our existing infrastructure systems. Highway 28 down in that country too is another example where you've got to start putting the rail back in, utilizing it, get that traffic off.
Yeah.
So all of the work you've done for all these years, glad to be part of it, to do whatever we can and nudge it across the line. So
I've enjoyed it, but I've, in the last couple of years are more exciting because we've been working with you and, visionary where we're going to go. And I appreciate that. And, like we were up at Elk Point there and talked about things there with them people.
Yeah.
I think there's other places we can do that in Alberta, and Grand Prairie will be the next one probably too.
Well, I love it, Doug. You're my poster child, so I always lead on what you're doing and saying you can do it. If Doug can do it, you guys can do it too. Here's a guy you got to talk to. And,
I appreciate the comments, but I mean, it takes us all together to make it work, and I appreciate you guys and the government helping us out.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you. We're going to get all gushy here, and so we'll just leave that one alone. Any parting words for folks that are sitting on the sidelines? Any recommendations for them?
Oh, I think if you got a chance to look at how you can improve your transportation, the rail's the way to do it, and you just you got to just work on it. It takes time. It is not a fast thing, that's for sure, and you have to talk with the railways to hook into them. But there's no question in my mind that that's the way to go.
Right on. Well, I appreciate it, Doug, and best of luck. We'll just keep trucking on this thing.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Take care, folks.
Yeah.
Let go. We picking up the buzzard on an old Black County road. We're just rolling coal.